Good afternoon, and welcome to our third session of the NAC Retreat Week. I'm Dan Borschke, Executive Vice President for NAC. It's my honor and privilege to introduce the next hour of programming. First of all, many thanks to our sponsors who, without their generosity, we would be unable to conduct this week-long educational experience. Many thanks to Coca-Cola, Gold Medal, Hershey Chocolate, Mars Wrigley, Rico Products Company, Load King, Pepsi, Vistar, ConAgra, Packaging Concepts Incorporated, PCI, Promotion in Motion, Great Western Products, Kernel Seasons, Manel Popcorn, Odell's, Preferred Popcorn, and Scribner and Associates. Like many of our members, NAC is certainly experiencing financial distress during these challenging times. So we thank all our members for their support and engagement as we all journey through this once in a century experience. If you'd like to assist NAC educational efforts, please visit the donate button at the NAC Retreat Week website page. But before we introduce this afternoon session, hope you'll be able to join us tomorrow, Wednesday, Veterans Day, for two very stimulating experiences. At 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, we're going to do a session on family business, or is it a blessing or is it a burden? Joining us, joining Denise DeZuter, NAC's president-elect, will be some four very interesting presenters. Stephanie Stuckey of the iconic Stuckey Corporation, where customers relax, refresh, and refuel. Adam Noyes, CEO of Proof of the Pudding, a similar Atlanta-based company and NAC member. Tony Liberto, who is the CEO of Rico's Products, and Noreen Sayage, CEO of Cranford Theater in Cranford, New Jersey. All are second and third generation business owners, and they'll be talking about family businesses. And then tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, join us for something very special. It's a virtual wine tasting with Joseph Wagner of Copper Cane Winery for a wine tasting experience. You might want to order an Uber to get home from work tomorrow afternoon because you'll be trying 3 or 4 different bottles. Don't forget, all sessions are accessible via the same link you used for today's session, with one exception. That's the wine tasting event, which makes it even more difficult for your alcoholic beverages. You need a unique link for that session since it'll be hosted directly by Copper Cane. If you don't have it already, go online at naconline.org and you can download the link there. During today's session, if you have any questions for the panelists, please use the question and answer function and we will address your inquiry. And Theresa and Kim, the moderators, also ask if you have any conversation you want to pursue. The chat function will also be in line, so feel free to use that as well. We are proud of the fact that we have over 360 registrants for this week's presentations, a great number, and thank you for the membership. And then finally, all these sessions are being recorded, so you'll be able to see them again or for the first time on naconline.org. And of course, we all know that you're here just because of door prizes, and those door prizes were generously provided by all of by many of our members. The names of today's winners will be announced by Chris Dahman at the end of this session. He will also be making the announcement at each and every end of each session, so good luck. So here we go. Today's session, buyer-seller relationship, and our friends Theresa Boysen from Kernel Seasons and Kim Cook-Sorano from Galaxy Theaters. Ladies, it's all yours. Chris, run the tape.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NAC Business Relationships panel. Thank you so much for joining us. First, let's start out with some introductions.
Okay, we've got a great panel with us today. I'm going to let everybody take a moment and tell you who they are and all the great information we're going to get to hear from them. So we'll start with Dave.
Dave Guepfer, La Crosse Center, La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Patrick?
Patrick Micalizzi, National Amusements Theater, Showcase Cinemas.
And Jill?
Hi, Jill King with Vistar.
And Christopher, or CB to be clear, since we have a couple of Chris's with us.
Yeah, I'm Christopher Bryan, aka CB, with VSS Southern Theaters, Grand and Amstar Cinemas out of New Orleans.
Great, thank you. And Siobhan?
Hi, Siobhan Scalamogna with Pepsico.
And Tim, I know you are theater ambassador, but I'm going to let you say the real thing too.
Tim Farha, the theater ambassador for Ferrara.
And Chris?
Sciortino, number 32. Playing right fullback. The AICP Corp candy cells, I guess.
And Mike?
Mike Koski, center plate Sodexo at the University of Michigan.
And last but not least, Stephen.
Hey, Stephen Fox. I'm the National Accounts Manager for Trinchero Family Estates, which is based in Napa, but I'm here in sunny Tampa, Florida.
I'm in Tampa too.
Yay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being with us. Theresa, do you want to talk a little bit about why we're here and what we're talking about today?
Yes. So today we're talking about business relationships, which we always say is a key value of the NAC organization. And if you've ever been to an expo, you have definitely experienced how valuable these relationships are. It really, we learn from each other during sessions like this, but we also learn just in social settings and being able to see somebody that has a lot of the same maybe issues, concerns, wins that you do every day, but in a different setting that can really talk about how they've navigated some issues, that you have some commonalities, and again, can learn from one another. My position in sales at Kernel Seasons and Chicago Custom Foods, obviously relationships are very important to me, but it's more than customer-vendor relationships or vendor cooperation relationships. When I started in a sales role, moving from customer service, I was very relieved to see a friendly face in Kim, that when I had done order processing, Kim was one of the general managers at Galaxy Theaters. And she and I had solved all kinds of problems together on that side operationally. And then with Galaxy, when I moved into a sales role, AJ said, oh, you know, we have this new person doing food and beverage. It's Kim. I'm like, wait, the same Kim? So it was really great that we were able to kind of bounce off, okay, you're new, I'm new, what do we do here? And then also in my experience too, being a new salesperson and getting involved with NAC, at Kernel Seasons, I'm the only food service salesperson. We have a bigger retail division, but I'm it for food service. So it was really helpful to me to talk to so many other vendors that had been around for much longer and knew what to expect and knew what we had to do that was different for our industry than it is anywhere else. So that was really key to me. A little side story, I got to spend my 40th birthday at a trade show last year, which most people would say, oh my gosh, that's awful. It was actually really fabulous. I was out to dinner with some customers and vendor friends, and truly meant it was great to not have to feel like I have to escape from my life for my birthday to properly celebrate. And, you know, going out to dinner, having fun with everybody. And then I get back to the hotel and I see Kim in the lobby, walking through the lobby with a whoopie pie that she had found in, like, I don't know if it was the gift shop or what, but it was for my birthday. That was a birthday cake. So you have to have those relationships.
It's not easy to find a birthday cake on Miami Beach at 10 o'clock at night, but you know,
with like 10 minutes notice. But you did it. It was amazing.
The candles, you know, yeah, it was fun, and it was nice to have everybody sing happy birthday to you, and that's definitely what this is all about. I mean, NAC has been amazing for me on that side of things as well, just because coming into this business and not knowing as many people from this industry as my previous one, it's been really nice to have those open arms, those warm relationships, and people there to back you and support you. So, but rather than hearing about mine, Tim, I know you know everybody pretty much, have worked with everybody somewhere along the way, but I'm sure there are relationships in your past that either started as personal and then became really good business networking, or the other way, or maybe a little bit of both. Can you tell us about any of those?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started calling on Cinemark and the theater class of trade, there had been a couple different Coca-Cola reps calling on Cinemark at the same time. And I was fortunate enough to get to work with Krista and then Diane Ward. And then lo and behold, Philip Couch was the Coca-Cola rep calling on Cinemark at one point. So Philip and I became really good friends, working together, calling on Cinemark, trying to do joint promotions and different things. And, you know, fast forward a couple of years later, Philip becomes the head of food and beverage at Cinemark. So our friendship then became both friendship and a business relationship, which, you know, you never know who, kind of like Theresa was saying, who's going to rise up and take over that position that you're calling on. So my relationship with Philip started as friends and then I guess grew into a business relationship. And along that way, I mean, I've always been a fan of it's easier to work with your competition than fight with your competition. So Chris Sciortino, you know, Rahili back in the day when he was at M&M Mars and you know, Scott Samet and Jeff Scadillo, all of the other candy salespeople, I feel like we're more a team helping our customers have the right mix versus competitors from my previous life in grocery and convenience, where I'd rather throw my competitor through the window than work with them in those classes of trade. So it's a breath of fresh air in the theater, concessions, you know, food and beverage, to where I think we're all very fortunate and we all benefit. You know, the theaters help each other too. So you know, I think the relationship part of our business is second to none. And heck, I would rather spend my birthday with you guys than my family, because you're just as much fun, if not more fun. So that's kind of where I stand on working with everybody and the relationships and just developing friendships first and then let the business follow.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
I think what you said there about, you know, relationships changing and positions changing and everybody not being in the same spot and already having those relationships built up is a big thing. I think a lot of us have seen it. Jill, you have, right? Throughout your career, you've been a little bit of everything from what I just found out yesterday, right? So
yes, I have. I have.
Do you have some of those relationships you've carried with you through all of that, through those changes?
I do. There are many, but I'm going to highlight on Rob Lehman, who I know a lot of you know. And I met Rob at lunch in Chicago at the Palm Restaurant. I was with Adam Gottlieb, and Adam introduced me to him. And of course, you know Adam. He had to embarrass me beyond belief when he introduced me to Rob, and we still laugh about that all the time. I can't tell you what he said, not in this setting, but maybe later. Rob was with Carissotis at the time, and I just left my 13-year tenure with Rico's, which that was number 2 for me. And then I went to Vistar, which is who I currently work with now. So in 2009, Carissotis found itself in trouble with that's who Rob was with, their current distributor. And so CCSI reached out to him, we picked up the pieces and we became the distributor. So for the first time, Rob was my customer. So we worked together a lot. And then come 2010, AMC started the process of buying Carissotis, which was completed in May. So then Rob started Lehman Consulting in June of 2010 and signed on with Rave Cinemas, which was my customer. So he was my customer again for the second time. Then in 2011, guess who? AMC and Carmike came into the picture, bought Rave. And at that point, Rob came to work with me at CCSI. So then we were working together, and he was my peer, and we became the best of friends professionally and personally. And then 2013, he left to be the VP of Food and Beverage for Carmike Cinemas. Carmike put out an RFP and CCSI bid it, and we were the successful to be the concession distributor for them. And there was some chatter that our relationship may have helped along the decision that CCSI would get the business, but it wasn't that way because it wasn't Rob that made the decision. It was the Carmike executive team. So guess what? March along for a few years, and then in 2016, here comes AMC, buys Carmike. So not too long after that, CCSI was sold to Vistar, which is where I am today. Rob's currently the COO and VP, Executive VP of Food and Beverage for Santikos Theaters. And he's not my customer yet, but Rob's worried if he does become my customer, that Santikos will be bought by AMC. So anyway, he's my mentor. He's my best friend. I reach out to him all the time for advice. And the last thing we laugh about is we're trying to figure out if it's him or me. That's the black cloud of acquisition in this industry. We decide who's the Eeyore, him or me. But we're still friends, and we're successful regardless of the hurdles we've been through. And 2020 has been the biggest one yet.
No doubt there for all of us, I think. But I don't think you're an Eeyore. I think that those transitions are growth opportunities, and it's amazing that you guys have been able to continue that growth together through all of that.
It has been good.
Those advice and changes and people being there for us, again, it's just another huge piece of that relationship. And so, CB, I heard a story yesterday that you are relatively new to the exhibition industry, and like me, come out of food and beverage and spent your previous life or career, if you will, in that area. How have your relationships with your suppliers and other people within NAC or just people that you're working with on a regular basis helped you make that transition and acclimate? Because it is a different world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because as you said, my background, for the last 15 years was developing food and beverage programs for kind of high-end restaurants, fine dining, high-end mixology bars in LA and New Orleans. So this kind of transition into concessions, exhibition, nachos, candy was definitely not without its speed bumps, and it was really humbling to kind of come in to feel like in one way is like I was at the top of my career in terms of what Data Essentials refers to in their trend spottings as inception and adoption, to now suddenly thrown to the other side of that far right of proliferation and ubiquity. And so, because the difference between putting a program for a couple thousand people over a weekend to suddenly maybe 20 or 30,000 taste profiles, you quickly realize you can't do this in a vacuum, right? You can't do this on your own. And, I have a phrase that I use often in many of my training programs, which is essentially explain it to me like I'm 5, right? Like regardless of the topic, I just kind of need you to boil this down to its essential and just assume that I know nothing. And to be honest, because, in this space, I really did kind of know nothing. And when I, first arrived and landed at NAC, I kind of felt like, like freshman year of high school, like everyone knew each other and I was the new guy and I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. But I very quickly, because I have a wonderful boss, Ron Kruger, who you can't miss and everyone knows. So, kind of just standing in his shadow, instantly I felt welcome and absorbed into the group. And then being able to kind of develop those relationships with people and, and really kind of recognize where people's passions were, as I approached it with this kind of curiosity and this kind of humbleness of knowing that this wasn't necessarily my field, but there were a lot of people who had been in this industry for a really long time with a lot of good stories and a lot of good best practices, and were willing to open up those to me. And having that kind of curiosity helped me develop those relationships. And essentially in the first year of kind of managing that program, we were able to increase our per caps by over 20%, simply from that curiosity and that development of that relationship, and asking my vendors, what are you passionate about, right? What are you really excited about? Not what your bosses are telling you to sell, but what do you think is going to work best for us? And where have you seen it work really well? and that willingness to be open and honest with each other and actually share. Because at the end of the day, if I win, you win. And as an industry collectively, especially now, we need each other because we win together. So yeah, that's kind of my story and what why I'm excited to be here and part of this kind of relationship building that really is what NAC is all about.
That's awesome, and I'm glad you found those warm arms and that warm welcome. I know I felt the same way. You mentioned especially in these times, and it really is a different world right now, and obviously the more support we can give to each other, the better. But we're all struggling through new challenges these days. So I think, Patrick, you've gone through some of the same challenges that we have. What have your people done on your side that have been there to help for you? The relationships you've built during this pandemic, how have they helped you or surprised you or just been there and had your back in a way that you didn't see coming?
Yeah, well, I think, this business more than any other that I could think of really is built on relationships. This group alone, there are 3-4 people I may know over 20 years each. When the virus first surfaced and the shutdown started, it was pretty evident that leaning on those relationships as well as being leaned on was what was going to help us, get ahead, forge ahead. The shock of the shutdowns, the uncertainty, nobody knew how long they were going to last. Was there light at the end of the tunnel? You didn't even know some days if you were picking up the phone to reach out to somebody, if they'd be on the other end of the line. And, the shock of all of it, what supplies might we need, where are we going to get them? What's going to be available to us? The panicked buying that we were all witnessing in grocery and retail and everything, it became pretty evident that we were going to have to lean on a bunch of people to help us pull it together. And that we did. The relationships that we've built over the years and over the decades really is showcased, especially during this time, the creativity, the teamwork, the sacrifice that everybody is putting in to keep an industry or a bunch of industries afloat. Candy suppliers became marketing experts, delivery drivers became service vendors. I have countless stories about the relationships that were critical, at least in this time, but I'll rattle off just a few. Early in the process, much like I think everybody on the call, we realized we had a need for PPE, cleaning products, masks. Where are you going to find a mask? And all of the different things that were coming at us when we realized, okay, we're going to really have to work hard to get these buildings reopened. Our fountain beverage partner reached out to us proactively, picked up the phone and say, look, we know you're going to have some trouble finding some of this stuff. We're going to open up a direct line of contact with our supply chain, and you can access them directly so you can get the things that you may need. You may need sanitizer, distancing decals, gloves. Vistar secured pallets, and believe me, pallets of sanitizer solution that we were going to need, and we may be hanging on to for a while. We have quite a bit in stock if anybody's interested. We learned early on that we were going to have to lean on people that don't normally sell us these types of items, and they're stepping up and coming to us with these opportunities. Our popcorn bag manufacturer worked with us on a covering for a popcorn bag to help us protect popcorn as customers made their way across the lobby to their seats. Just trying to think creatively of the different things that we can do to keep some normalcy in a business that was completely disrupted. More interestingly, manufacturing partners changed their lines to make items that wouldn't normally be made on their lines. Secretors is one that comes to mind, that switched gears from making popcorn equipment and butter toppers to producing hand sanitizer stands and plexi barriers that would protect the ushers that are tearing tickets. So smart and creative, certainly a way to keep their business going, but at the same time, it really was a crutch to us who didn't know who to pick up the phone and call. AICP did much the same, putting all of those candy opportunities aside just for a few moments anyway for us, and offered up plexi shields, stanchion toppers, signage, floor decals, and came to the rescue when we had to open up buildings. We were ready. Our frozen food delivery service became our equipment service provider. Don't ask how that happened, but it did. And they helped us shut down and winterize equipment that we knew would take some damage if we weren't careful. They simultaneously are offloading or loading up their trucks with items that we needed to move. We had drop zones. We only had a handful of managers left, and moving PPE and cleaning supplies between between theaters and even to different states where we need it. Candy suppliers turned our lifeless websites back into frequently visited sites. We ran trivia contests, vote for your best snack, vote for your best movie, and just some things that were generally fun to keep people engaged. While the movies were on pause, the magic part of that continued. Talk about relationships and ones that you don't really see that would be a benefit to you even in these times. Our landlord at Patriot Place in Foxborough, who also happen to own the New England Patriots, they became our pop-up drive-in partner, and we took over the parking lot at Gillette Stadium for summer and fall and a really cold Saturday last week of drive-in events that were virtually sold out every week. They handled the parking. They seem to have a pretty good handle on that. And we did the curbside food and used technology and app ordering and contactless payment to get people to the curb and pick up their snacks for their movies. And we had some charity events involved there too, where we're using local food banks as the beneficiary of the revenue for the night. So definitely a great partnership, but never one that I would have imagined. But some of the most rewarding relationships during all of this are right here on these types of calls. Competitors became allies, sharing ideas, helping each other stand together and stand up as an industry and tackle what is easily the biggest challenge that we faced. Our once guarded secrets became tools to help each other survive, and best practices were shared without that fear of giving up a competitive edge. I think that it's relationships like this really that stepped up and saved the day. So those are just a few examples of the relationships that we forged over the years that when we needed them, and I don't think we realized that we needed them in the capacity that we did. They were there for us. They picked up the phone and in some cases called us to lend a hand as well. So thanks to everybody that was a part of that.
I love that. And I love that call out to, working with your competitors. It's very similar to something that Tim said earlier as well. And I think especially now it was hugely helpful for all of us. So I think one of the few relationships you didn't mention, and it's amazing that so many of them were so helpful to you during this time, are the relationships with our liquor suppliers, especially for theaters in a lot of cases where liquor is semi-new to us. So I understand you and Stephen have worked together on projects and making sure that you're within your boundaries. Can you guys both tell us a little bit about that and how that relationship worked and came about?
Sure. I'll just say that I, saved the Trinchero story for last by design, because we knew we'd be talking today a little bit about this. And this is one of the oldest partnerships that we have outside of the norm, outside of the packaged candy and the popcorn bags and the popcorn seed, liquor in cinemas for us is over 20 years old now. Stephen's group was one of the first to partner up with us and help us really get the program off the ground. And again, that's a relationship that we have and value and maintain so many years later. So part of the challenges, I think, with liquor for us in the beginning was understanding it. It's so confusing. It's not like calling up Vistar and saying, I need popcorn seed and, we need it next Thursday. We're dealing with locale, different locations and different rules and rules. And one thing that we didn't really understand is that there really is a three-tier system out there that really can get very hard to navigate. And of course, reaching out to folks like Stephen, we were able to navigate that. I don't know, Stephen, if you want to pick up and explain what that is. I have a thing or two to learn again.
Yeah, people talk a lot about the three-tier system, and I thought maybe we just first touch on exactly what that is. The first tier of the system would be the manufacturers or brand owners, which is like who I work for, or sometimes are called suppliers. That second tier is the wholesaler network, who's probably delivering stuff to your back door. And then vendors who are actually giving and selling to the final retailer are the third tier of that, whether that's being consumed on premise, as it is for most of your locations, or whether it's consumed off premise after they buy it from the retailer and get it back to their home to consume. So post-prohibition in the United States, anything that the federal government had kind of let go of now goes down to the states. Within states, whatever isn't covered under state law sometimes go down to municipalities. And it's made for such a incredibly complicated system. As Pat referred to earlier, it is a real value to have some suppliers and vendors you work with to help you navigate that, because they do work in every state. It's a huge challenge, and it's nice to have partners with you to help you navigate it. Pat, can you talk a little bit about how that complexity has affected you in buying alcohol beverage and setting up new licenses?
Yeah, I think it really requires that you become an expert in every jurisdiction that there is out there and do it quickly. Our quick learning after we did the first one, and we're like, this is easy, we've got this. It was one cinema in Long Island, and we figured that we were now the subject matter experts on how to acquire liquor licenses around the country, and that was, it couldn't be farther from the truth. The licensing itself is so tricky, and sometimes you're dealing with the state directly, sometimes you're dealing with local or county folks, and sometimes you need to go before local boards of either selectmen or council to seek their approval first. So learning up front of all of the requirements in every jurisdiction where we wanted to seek one was tough. And once we got past that part, we thought the biggest hurdle was overcome. Then there's distribution and how you buy liquor in all of these different places, and how they're partnered up with, the brands are partnered up with distribution, and it may not be the same, person you're buying from state to state, and even certain towns within the same state. So again, we had to forget what we thought we knew and start over. And then the kicker was learning that we had to set up accounts and credit apps and deposits and all kinds of fun stuff with every single one of them. So if we had a relationship with Southern in New York, for example, well, yeah, Southern in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, sorry, it's really not going to work the same way. It's a whole different group. They're affiliated but not affiliated, so you're going to start over and you're going to fill out the 7-page credit app that doesn't look anything like the other vendor's 7-page credit app and everything else. And then there's challenges like getting listed, with the state if you're outside of terms. Now the terms could be COD in some, it could be 10 days in some, it could be 30 days. You have to manage all that. And when you fall outside of terms, there's something called state listing. And we learned the hard way that they scream loudly when you're late with a $20 or $100 invoice, and the state prevents you from buying. So those are all the different things, other than the pricing differences and trying to manage, by market, how all the stuff comes into and what it costs. But that's where suppliers can help. Certainly Stephen and Trinchero have been helpful in helping us navigate that. I've called many times and emailed and said, can you help us? Because we don't really understand what it is that's happening. But there's more suppliers can do as well. I don't know, Stephen, if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that our suppliers in the alcohol industry are able to help out accounts. There's also a lot of restrictions on what we are and are not allowed to do. And there's not enough time in the day for us to cover all of that today. But I'm going to touch on some of the complications with it. State laws definitely vary about equipment or branded pint glasses of what's being allowed to give to an account. My advice on that would be make sure you're aware of the state laws and are following within compliance. Suppliers in the wine and spirits industry can also provide financial support, some very, very narrow defined areas. We can help with offset printing cost. We can help with education and also with specific brand training. Having said that, though, we also can't give money directly to any of the license holders. So we work, a lot of our accounts work with either a third-party marketing company, and there's a lot of those that are really, really good and can help grease the skids for opening up in new states, menu development, and print. So the financial support that we get for print usually goes directly to a print company or to one of those third-party marketing companies. Pat, is there any other concerns that you've had around serving alcohol?
Well, no, it's certainly something that we're looking forward to adding back. We're starting now as we open up buildings. We're in the Northeast primarily, so we were late to the game in reopening. And we're starting to add that back. And what we found is that there is definitely a desire for people to sit back, put their feet up and relax and have a cocktail or a nice glass of wine. Some of the general concerns are always the liability of it all and having the right partners, both in your risk management or consulting firm to take a look at that, and the insurance companies. How do we stop underage drinking from happening in a dark movie theater, for example, and how do we control it? We've been great. For 20 years, we've done it successfully, and we put some great safeguards in place. But it really takes a lot of thought and a lot of creativity to figure out what happens once the lights go down and people make their way into a dark auditorium. And then, of course, keeping up with the trends. In the beginning, we thought we could handle everything ourselves, and we'd make some great cocktails and some very ornate, oversized martinis with giant chocolate chip cookies hanging off the side. But really, there are trends out there that are more than hokey cocktail ideas that you'd stumble upon in a movie theater. So sometimes there's consultancies out there. We use one currently to help us along with, trends especially, and control and portion size and recipe and training and the like. And there are some out there that do it without those services equally as successfully.
Well, good. I know there's probably a lot of conference attendees that are considering getting into alcohol. It's been growing in this arena. And, Pat, I've enjoyed the relationship we've had with you for so many years. If you start to stick your toe in the water of doing alcohol beverage, I highly recommend getting some good supplier partners to work with you. Stevie touched on this earlier. It's about if you're winning, we're winning, and it's finding suppliers that are there rowing in the same boat with you and selling what's important for you and not trying to put square pegs into a round hole. But definitely had a great relationship with Pat, and looking forward to this industry growing more with beverage alcohol.
Same here. We appreciate your partnership.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. And if anybody is looking to get into that and you need some references on people who are doing it during that conversation, just look at the operators that were going, yep. You can tell who's bounced through it before. All right. Thanks so much, guys. All right, switching over to stadiums a little bit. Mike and Dave. Mike, you and I had talked, we had talked on a conference call with everybody, and you said one of the things that was really unique to stadiums was timing. Typically, you have a ton of people, you have a ton of things going on. You're not looking at placing any new products or, bringing anything, changing your menu for a set amount of time. And then when there is a little bit of downtime, you want to see all the options and you want to rethink everything. And it's important for suppliers to know what that timing is and be able to adjust to it. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, some of the considerations that are different for stadiums and arenas?
Absolutely. With the stadiums and arenas, we tend to work ahead, say 3 to 4 months ahead of the actual season. As everyone kind of prepares and gets ready for. I work in a stadium that was built in 1927 and does not have concessions in mind from the beginning. So trying to get new products in here, get new ideas in here to fit what we're trying to do and what the University of Michigan is trying to do is it's a complicated task. So what I try to tell people, at least from my vendor side, is if you want to get into the football stadium, I need to have all the ideas, the presentation, the cost, the price, the delivery, the everything by 4th of July. If I don't have it by 4th of July, you're not getting in here in September. When football season starts. So the other thing that I'm kind of up against is our menu boards. Unlike a lot of theaters or a lot of new arenas, we do not have digital menu boards. So when my menu boards go to print in, beginning of August, that's it. That's my one shot. Those are my menus for most of the season. Now there is always exceptions, of course, when the university comes and tells me that they want to sell water for $2 instead of $8. We make the adjustment. But one of my actually good stories, and it goes along with what everyone's been talking about with friendships first and business second, is J&J Snacks came to me with an idea for a root beer float pop, kind of like a lemon chill and root beer, but it was a root beer float. Sounded awesome. I can see some people on the panel kind of smiling, going, "Yeah, I'll take one of those right now." The problem was that he came in mid-July with this idea of, "Hey, I can do this for you." Sounded great, sounded awesome. We couldn't get to the minimum quantities needed. So I actually picked up the phone and called my good friend that is the general manager over at Michigan State University. I know it's a touchy subject now with what happened here recently, but him and I have been in contact and communication. I've known him for 10 years. I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, if you're willing, you want to go in halfsies on these, split the order up. I'll commit to half, you commit to half, and we get this into the stadium and everything will be good. By the time we went back and forth and got everything confirmed, it was too late in the cycle to get the product here in time. The root beer floats would have been here, I think it was the first or second week in October, which for us misses the window. If it's not in that early September time window, we're not going to sell it at an outdoor stadium. So that kind of ties together of, hey, timing is very, very important for us. And also, to go along with that, I have a very short memory. You can show me something today, and in 2 days, I will completely forget what you showed me or how I can implement it. So I have to be in the right set of mind. Is seasonally, come July, I'm thinking nothing but football. So you show me an idea in July, and I can implement it for the football season. But if I see something in April for football season, yeah, I'm a mess. I'm gonna completely forget about it. So that kind of ties together everything on from the operator side on how we want to see new things. We love new inventions, new ideas, new technology, new ways we can implement these products into our arenas. But it also has to be in the right time frame.
That makes sense. Thank you. And David, what's unique to your business, to your arena? I know you've actually taken a lot of this time to do a lot of remodeling and revamping so that you're ready to go. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, we spent the last 5 years planning for a $42 million addition and renovation, ripping all our concessions down. So it happened to fall right in the middle of COVID. So we've been shut down since March. And so we don't have to work around like we were planning, having to work around events to do all our renovations. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule. I thought we'd be a lot further, not have to close down. I mean, this weekend was supposed to be bull riding and rodeo, and obviously we don't have to bring the dirt in or the bulls in, so they can still continue working. So we thought it'd be a little ahead of schedule, but if you're always looking for the silver lining in something, that's our silver lining, that we've been able to keep our remodel and our renovation. We're adding I'm doing a venue tour for NAC here next week, so you get to see a little bit of what we're doing. But talking about relationships, I just wanted a quick story about how I got involved with NAC. Is I used to be in the restaurant business. I owned a restaurant, and all us restaurateurs were good friends. We had a bad day, we have something going on, we could call each other, lean on each other. I got into this industry, and it's like, well, I'm the only convention center and arena in town. There's nobody to call. What do I do? So I Googled associations back 18 years ago and found this group called National Associations of Concessionaires. So joined it, and I think it's been fabulous. I mean, it's so nice to, I look at routing and I see the KISS concert I'm gonna have in a month, and I look at routing and I say, hey, they're in 2 buildings of my NAC friends. I'll call them up and see what to look for, how long was their intermission, how was the alcohol sales, and it's really been helpful. So again, hats off to everybody at NAC. I think it's a great organization.
Thank you. That's outstanding. And that brings up a great point with convention centers and stadiums. Typically, they're far enough apart that you're not competing for the same exact event, and you'll be able to really run through best practices and lean on each other a little bit more.
Yeah, I think and that's what's great. I think we all help each other, and just like some of the candy guys were saying, you become friends and help each other because it's better for all of us. And I think in our industry, that's really been helpful, is to be able to pick up the phone and say, we're having an issue with this, help us out, and then talking about relationship with the beer vendors. When COVID hit, we were going right into our busy season with conventions and arena events. And I had every cooler full of half barrels of beer, and half of them were tapped and half weren't. And I'm thinking, I'm sitting on all this inventory and all this money. Well, it was nice that our relationship with the beer vendors, they picked all the beer up, gave us credit even for the partials, even though it was tapped, but because they turned it all into a hand sanitizer. So they wanted our supply. So it was kind of nice to have that relationship where he says, I really don't want to throw thousands and thousands of dollars worth of beer. I can't drink it all by myself. but I'll try. But they picked it up, and
I feel like in Wisconsin that wouldn't be a problem.
that's why I said it isn't a problem, but that's why I said I couldn't do it all by myself. But I would give it an effort. But those relationships were key.
That's excellent. And that's great because that leads us right into what I'm going to ask Siobhan. So you're representing one of the core products at theater and entertainment. Obviously, you had to change things a whole lot. How did you navigate some of the inventory and equipment issues with your customers? And how do you manage to give that personal attention that everybody really needs when everybody is facing the same thing, and you're probably trying to coordinate with home office, with corporate, for how is this actually going to be solved? How'd you balance it all?
Typically in sales, we are the conduit between our partners and our organization. So we come to our partners, we gather all the information, we go back, Theresa, to your point, to home office and say, okay, we're going to run this program, or this is the forecast. And then it follows a very beautiful system of supply chain and transportation. Well, that went out the window. And I tried really hard in the beginning to still just be that conduit. And then finally I said, you know what, everybody has to come to the party. And I got supply chain on the phone with our customers, and transport and packaging and all of these folks. And I had people saying to me, Siobhan, we're never on customer facing calls. And I said, well, guys, you need to hear it kind of straight from the horse's mouth to understand, and everybody's touched on it. It's a completely different world, right? Patrick said, you don't have managers at every site to accept deliveries. Nobody knows what the forecast is going to look like. We changed a lot of our packaging lines over from food service to retail packages, right? So for me, I found that I think at the beginning, everybody was like, why are there 20 plus people on these calls? And it was like, guys, we all need to be working this together because this isn't following our standard kind of protocol, right? So bringing everybody into that tent. And I think, always looking for the silver linings of these things, right? One of them is it's an interesting business, right? Even though it's been a hard year, we say this all the time, we're the fun group, right? So I think people in our organization who are normally, staring at Excel documents all day and doing forecasts and working on transport, I think this was a little bit, even though in a challenging time, it was a little bit of a breath of fresh air for them. And then I think for our partners, it really helped because I wasn't coming back to you 1,000 times to ask clarifying questions. Our team was there to ask it directly. So they were getting great information directly from our partners, which I think helped us do the best we could, kind of with what we were working with. So definitely, like I said, I think being over communicative and bringing a ton of people into the fold is what really helped us. And we're still doing that, right? Because we still have a little bit of time until we're back to, I look forward to the day where we can say we're expecting attendance to be here, which means we're expecting product sales to be here. And this is what that all looks like. I can't wait to get back to that flow chart because it certainly makes things a little bit easier. But until then, we're getting creative.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's good to hear. And CB, I wanted to go back to you for a minute. Along those lines, you had talked about optimizing your menu for not just what is profitable right now, but the supplies you can get. How have your vendors helped you? How have your fellow exhibitors helped you? How have you kind of worked through that process?
Yeah, I mean, when the shutdown happened for us, the hardest part, like everyone else in the cinema industry, was suddenly you're just sitting on this loads of product that are facing expiration. And a big part of our growth in 2019 was menu expansion, right? Was expanding our concessions from hot food, expanding our liquor and beer and wine programming, which is my background. Having an optimized, draft beer menu with 16 different selections, having an optimized wine selection, making sure that we covered every base. And suddenly now, facing 4 or 5 months shutdown, I'm not only am I disposing of all of this inventory, not only of food and of liquor, beer, and wine, but also, we're running into expirations on candy, et cetera, et cetera. So, going forward, the pathway forward was the only way that I can maintain us as a profitable venue, is I can't ever put us at risk again of sitting on that much product and sitting on that much staff until we are confident in returning levels. So a lot of that now is now looking at our vendor partners and saying, hey, previously in the past, when I gave you an RFP, you know, I was looking for 10 different SKUs to maximize my rebates or to maximize my menu support. I can't do that any longer, right? Now I've got 3 SKUs. And so we have to figure out a way to make sure, A, that those 3 SKUs are always available, right? What's going to be the maximize that I'm not going to run out of? And secondly, what is, you know, it's almost like going back to business 101, right? The 80-20 rule, right? What is the 80% of the products or what are 80% of my consumers buying, right? And just really laser focusing in on that narrow 20% and carrying that. And so, you know, my managers have a very strict edict, which is what is essential. You know, when you take a look at your product mix and you take a look at your rotating inventory as we're reopening and as we're bringing things in, if it doesn't fall in that 20% category and you can't really sell it in 28 days at a risk of another shutdown, I can't carry it. I can't afford to put that kind of capital on the line. So that's been kind of just, you know, a constant nudging and massaging of the relationships as both of us kind of have to like temper our expectations and, you know, and recognize that, you know, I'm sorry, I can't carry 6 candies anymore from your portfolio. I'd love to, I wish I could, but at this point I can't. I can only carry 2. So I hope that you can go back to your bosses and figure out a way to still get me that kind of same rebate dollars, still give me that same kind of menu support based on knowing that not only is our volume going to be down, but also the amount of SKUs that I can do for you is going to be down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And now, Chris, last but not least, you have not only shifted from candy supply and display supply. You had mentioned a little bit of the PPE stuff that you had gotten into, but when you and I were talking, you had mentioned branching out even into a little bit of relationship building and consulting where it comes to finance right now that you had identified as a need in the industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that and, you know, kind of why you got into branching out even a little bit more?
Sure. I think I'll go back a little bit and mention what Pat had mentioned is really when this all happened, when COVID shut everything down, we had some contacts from, you know, being in the business for 30 years, had some contacts reach out and say, hey, can you do anything with masks? So as far as our relationships go on the customer side, we reached out to everybody saying, hey, do you need masks? At the same time, there were a lot of other people reaching out with masks. And I think over the course of maybe 3 weeks, masks went from 79 cents to 19 cents a mask. And it was chasing it. And we realized that we were never going to get ahead of that. We'd probably wind up losing money or overcharging a customer somewhere. So we quickly said, let's let somebody else have that. And where else do we have some expertise? And we had already been in the sort of crowd control space. And so we pivoted to finding some additional manufacturers who could do all the shields for us. So speaking with customers, what else do they need that they're having trouble finding? And initially there were some acrylic shortages and things like that. We found a few suppliers who could deliver, and we were confident could deliver. We actually interviewed about 15 different acrylic suppliers and wound up with 3, sort of higher end, a mid-tier one, and a one that was less expensive, but all that we thought were reliable and that we'd ever be able to deliver on. And that also came from relationships that we've had with different vendors, with our customers. And as I look at the screen today, I don't see any competitors or customers or vendors. I see just friends, as Tim said earlier. And that's really where all of our intel comes from, is from those relationships, right? There's not a lot of sort of reporting in our world. We can't go look at a report every week and say, you know, how much candy was sold in theater, or how much Sour Patch Kids was sold in theater. We really rely on one another. And I think if there's a new buyer that comes into the industry or someone new, I look to Tim Farha because he knows everybody. Hey, Timmy, who's this new person? Or you, Theresa, you too. You're getting there quickly. You're following quickly in Timmy's steps.
I'm trying. Tim is my hero.
But so to your point, and then we look beyond that. So now we've done all the acrylic, and where do we go next? And what are people going to need on the other side of this? And my educational background is in finance, and we start looking at that and say, what is everybody going to need on the other side of this? Everybody's going to need money, right? I think everybody, not just theater, not just concessions. There's a whole lot of businesses out there that are going to need money. So we thought that was a place we had some, at least knowledge and have a lot of contacts in that world. Me personally, I have a lot of friends who are Wall Street people who have kind of retired. Wish I had done that, but have retired and started lending businesses, lending with their own money, hard money lending, all kinds of different financial products that they're creating that we can offer to some of our customers and our contacts and people we know and love and who we want to see succeed and get through this. And a lot of people have sort of clawing their way through, right? And we're kind of hopefully getting to a point where we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. But now it's a matter of, can everybody hold on long enough to get there? And a lot of people are really struggling to do that. And that's why and how we pivoted to providing some financial assistance as well.
Okay, that's great. Goes to show just creative problem solving of this group. All right, guys. Well, I think that's about all we need for this. All right, everybody, welcome back to the live panel. Thanks for sticking around through our recorded session, making sure everybody got a chance to chat and we had no technical difficulties there. So now we'd like to open it up for questions to anybody on the panel from the audience. Do we have any questions? If not, Kim and I have some more prepared. You guys don't get out of here early.
Theresa, why don't you go ahead with your questions?
Okay, so one of the topics that we didn't really cover that I think is important right now is mentorship, especially within the industry. And, you know, I had touched on it was really important to me. CB and Kim, you had just mentioned that as well in the discussion. Kim, I'd like to start out with you, putting you in the hot seat a little bit, because we didn't get to talk to you enough. And then everybody else can take a minute and think about how they'd like to respond. But do you have any examples of really what it takes to be a good mentor, what you have learned from other people, you know, any kind of stories to share to help guide us? Up, you're on mute.
Got to be smarter than the computer, I guess. Yeah, I still consider myself a little bit of a newbie, although I got into exhibition about 7 years ago. So it was a big transition for me. I had basically had an entire career in food and beverage already. So when I moved over, there was a lot to learn. Like CB said, it's a different world and it's a huge learning curve. And I was in operations, so it wasn't just the food and beverage that I knew, it was the entire operations of theaters in general. And I have been very, very lucky. I work for a small, intimate company. I worked directly for a VP of operations who was a general manager himself at one point. So there was nobody better to learn from. And then from the other side of it, from a leadership standpoint, I have had just really supportive people that are willing to allow us to take risks, even before I stepped into my current role, and willing to listen and willing to try something new and throw spaghetti at the wall and see what's going to stick. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned over the last few years, or gotten better at maybe over the last few years, simply from working with people who have allowed the same thing from me.
Theresa, we have a question.
Great, thank you. Sure do. Let's see. Oh, from Adam. Tim and Chris, are the manufacturers planning any promotional activity to help concessionaires bring customers back to the concession stands once theaters are fully back in business?
Oh, I mean, I've got programming that's our standard programming, plus we've got an opportunity for theaters that want to partner with us on some new items, which would be beneficial financially as well as sales potential. As soon as they're ready, I'm ready. So let me know.
I think we're looking at the same thing. Basically, we're not so focused on new items, but we have programs for existing items. I think a lot of people are talking about back to the core. So we have items on we have promotional activity on our core items in each of the lines with the different manufacturers.
Great, thank you. And Siobhan, Stephen, and Jill, do you guys have anything as theaters are recovering, any plans or promotions, activities that you'd like to share as well?
I know our company has responded. We've had a lot of demand, not just in theaters, but from other people of having single serves. We've taken some more of our premium brands and put those into single serve. Some consumers have some demand for that, but for them, it feels safer to be able to take that product with them and open it in themselves at their seat versus having it poured by someone else and then an open top.
That's interesting. That's something I didn't think about, but it totally makes sense.
Agreed. We're also taking a look at packaging, particularly on the food side of our business. As stadiums and all concessions are wanting to go, we have some opportunities to make it an attractive package for concessions. So we're starting that work as well to make things, we want people to be comfortable when they come back so that they buy. So trying to align with that best we can.
Yeah, as far as being a distributor, we don't do many promotions per se. I think our forgiveness has been in forgiveness for minimums for deliveries because we require a certain amount of money, it costs to run the truck. So I think what we've done is give some forgiveness with minimums for delivery so that they can get by with smaller deliveries until they get back on their feet.
Yep, and that makes sense. Excellent. Man, we have some good partners on this panel. Excellent. And then from a management perspective with your teams too, what additional things have you done as far as keeping in communications? And this is probably more for the operators with your staff to make sure that when people are coming back, they're feeling safe about coming back, or they're still feeling engaged to the company when they're coming back. Is there anything that you've changed in the way that you communicate with your teams?
I'll jump in. Sorry.
Go ahead. Nope, go for it.
The communication really has changed. Of course, the face-to-face meetings and the like are, a thing of the past. Some of them need to be put to bed. Honestly, some of the longer meetings. But I think with our staff and our training, we put together a program, Be Showcase Safe, and it's a cinema safe type program too. But this is learning for staff that may have been with us for 15 and 20 years. To relearn the business, relearn how we're operating while they perhaps were out on furlough for a bit of time. So the communications changed, but certainly it's very robust in getting the information out to even our frontline staff of how the business changed overnight and what they can expect when they come back to make them feel comfortable and in turn make the customers feel comfortable as well.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of that, we've gone above on the communication more so than I think we ever have. Leading into this football season and basketball and hockey that are just about to open up here. Whereas normally we'll have one training kind of midsummer and one training in the late summer to open up the football stadium and then carry that training over into the smaller arenas. It's almost a weekly communication to all my staff now of, okay, what's changed from last week to this week? Here are new procedures. Here's what worked last week. Here's what didn't work last week. And here's what we're going to change. So if anything, if you want to take a positive out of any of this, it's the over communication that we've started to do to try to keep everyone involved.
And Mike, how has your team responded to that? Have you received any feedback or noticed any difference in attitude or engagement?
Like most things, some of them are probably annoyed that they see an email from me or some kind of communication from me almost on a weekly basis, but I've gotten a lot more engagement from it. I've opened the floor up to my seasoned veterans, my supervisors, to say, okay, use this as a blank slate. What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? What's going to make things easier for you? What's going to make things easier for the guest? And let's just throw everything that we ever know out the window, and let's start running in a different direction if we want to. And I've gotten a lot of positive response from that. So as much as it does annoy some people, it's probably more so on the positive.
Great.
Patrick, you mentioned changes in putting to bed those long meetings, which I think a lot of us are probably happy about these days. Does anybody else run into things that you have either done differently now that you think will continue, or things that you have been able to cut out, like, you know, overlasting meetings that you think will continue in the future and will actually be better for you as a business that you've come across since the pandemic?
Anyone or me? I'll jump in again.
Anyone, but absolutely you.
You know, I think too, just the types of meetings, they're changing shape a little bit and what is considered productive. So a 2-hour meeting several times a day may be something that we can put to the side, but the more frequent, smaller, little bits and pieces of communication, daily, weekly, you know, I think people would be relieved if I only sent them an email once a week. It's probably several times a day, but those little bits and pieces of communication to keep people up to speed, I think is something that we're going to continue. It just needs to be controlled. It needs to be relevant, timely, and it just needs to be provided to them, you know, in a way that they can take it and bundle it together with everything that we have given them preceding that. So I think those will continue.
I think one thing we're looking at is as a convention center with our remodel, we're going with all kinds of new equipment to host more online and Zoom meetings. The conferences that are booking with us, their numbers are dropping, and they want to be able to still do what we're doing, is still host their convention, smaller number wise, but still be able to broadcast it. So we're looking at investing in a lot more that kind of equipment when we open our new ballroom and convention center side. So equipment and way people are meeting is going to change, and we realize that.
It's exciting to hear, and that you guys are getting ahead of the curve on that one. I think somebody mentioned yesterday that they're tired of hearing the word pivot, but we keep having to do it right now.
Yeah. What about the future of face-to-face meetings? At first, when this all started, people were saying, oh, this is great. Everybody can just meet from home. There's, you know, people don't have to travel. They don't have to do anything. And, you know, for me, it took all of 2 weeks to say, okay, when am I getting on a plane again? But from especially the customer perspective, how has it been really meeting by phone or having to do virtual meetings versus meeting in person? Anybody?
I was going to say, I miss the banter, right? When you get on a Zoom call, you have a full agenda and you lose that, you know, time walking to lunch or after a dinner or, you know, chatting on a trade show floor or in between the meetings, right? You know, it's great that we can all get on and stick to an agenda and everybody has, like, you know, hard stops at whatever time typically. So we've gotten very efficient, I think, but you missed those couple minutes here and there. And I think, you know, as we talk a lot about relationship building here, that's how you build relationships. You know, stop to have a chat about whatever it might be. And then you learn that you have something in common with, you know, your partner or your fellow vendor or whatever it might be. And that's how those relationships form. So, you know, we need to get back to it in a safe fashion, but, you know, we're efficient online. But you know, you miss people.
To add on to what Siobhan said, I enjoy the Zoom meetings, and it's certainly so much better than being able to pick up the phone. Like Theresa, I'm dying to get back on a call, but the communication on a Zoom meeting is not the same communication you would have in a room with people, because in a normal conversation, there may be 2 or 3 people talking and you keep up with all of it. Zoom doesn't facilitate that. It's almost like I can see you, but we're talking on CB radios and I have to give you my message and then it's like over, and then it's the next person's turn to go. And it's just, it doesn't have the same real life feel of being in a room with somebody. It doesn't have the same flow. I miss that.
I would agree with that as well. And I think there's opportunities that are missed because when you're in person,
Over.
you don't just follow. I'm sorry? You don't just follow the agenda when you're in person. There's other opportunities that come up and you talk about other things. You look around in someone's office and you say, hey, what's that? What's going on? What are you doing with that? And you get to learn a lot more about the overall business and their strategy for our customers and where they're going and how we can help them versus like, following the agenda of the meeting and only speaking about specific things, and you kind of lose some of that other stuff. So I miss that. I can't wait to get back to that.
Like the person that made the ribbing and you didn't catch it because you didn't hear him.
That's right. That's right. I can't punch him in the arm for saying it.
Bingo. Ribbing.
Well, Tim, do you have any last words before we call it a day?
Well, we had one more question here that I'm trying to find. Charlotte Hunter said, how have interns' involvement changed since COVID, and how do they still get something out of the experience? Anybody have interns?
I'm my own intern, and I guess through COVID, I've learned how to use my computer a lot better via Zoom. And I think really we've all learned new tricks, new ways of going to market, going to business, doing our business. I think she brings up a good point in the fact that interns, if companies did have interns, I think a lot of that was put on hold. So I think it's probably harder for the new workforce to get their foot in the door via internships and things like that. But I'm kind of speaking out of turn because I don't have interns. We don't use them, but maybe someone else on the panel does.
Yeah, we were looking at bringing in intern here, or they reached out to us and we said, everything is canceled for 6 months. You're going to learn how to cry with the rest of us, and that's about all you can learn.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat where I equate intern to kind of the student population. And, when you've gone from a full-time management staff of 12 people down to 4, interns aren't really the top priority. You want to bring back those managers that you've been working with for the past 10 years first, and then kind of have the trickle down. So as much as we'd love to have interns and people to do a lot of the dirty work for a lot of places, I just don't see that coming back quite as fast as the rest of things.
Yeah. Well, Dave, you're making a joke, but it really, it's part of the value of being in a group like this is having people to cry with together, because everybody who here is leading a team, you have to be the voice of reason. You have to be the strong person. You have to see what's going on, but you still need to have that group of people that you're talking to going, okay, I did not see that last twist coming. What the heck do we do now? And an association like this really gives you those connections. I know I've had plenty of phone calls, emails, and meetings that I've reached out lately for that very reason. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to add or any additional questions? All right, then I think we're ready to wrap it up. Thank you so much for everybody for your participation, and thank you, Dan and Chris, for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Theresa.
And thank you, Kim, for a fabulous co-host.
Well, before we leave, Chris, you have a few announcements and we'll call it a day after that.
We do. Just let me get my screen up here. All right, just to remind everyone, one link gets you into all the NAC education sessions and our annual meeting this week. Except for the copper cane wine testing tomorrow afternoon. And that you can go to the ReTreat page on naconline.org and get that link. We also sent that out via Outlook invitation. And based on the results, looks like a lot of people are going to attend, so that'll be fun. Also, remind everybody, get out and get some exercise this week in the form of our virtual fun run and walk. The first 30 submitted selfies of you out on your run, you will receive a free beach towel courtesy of Promotion in Motion. And also, I would point out that on the Fun Run page on Retreat Week, on the Fun Run tab, we also have put courses from past years that we actually did an actual run. So if you needed some type of reference point, you can certainly check that out. We also have great venue tours. You know, Dave was on this call and he leads a great one through La Crosse Center, recently renovated, still, I think, somewhat being renovated. And he walks you through, did a really nice job for us. There's one on Legends at AT&T Stadium in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's kind of a highlight tour. The Tivoli Theater, Classic Cinemas sent along it's more of a virtual tool to look through one of their theaters. And then the Amway Center in Orlando, kind of a sizzle reel. So check those out on the venue tour page. We also have bonus features on that page. We've got the debut of episode 3 of Laboring with a Multi-Generational Workforce. It's our podcast series. That was our regional seminar series. We've had over 260 listens to the first 2 episodes. And we certainly would love for you to check out episode 3. It's brand new, just put on last week. And then finally, the Resume Refocused webinar, a recording of that Dan and some experts got on a few weeks ago to help those folks who are displaced right now with some basic resume skills. So that's going to lead me to maybe the highlight of today's, but I can't call it a highlight because it was such a great panel. But I know what you're all looking forward to. Today's door prizes. Yes.
Those are not today's. Those were yesterday's prizes.
Oh, okay. Okay, but you know what? I do have today's prizes right in front of me. So we will pivot, as it were. We are giving away a 5-pound Hershey bar today, and that will go to Nathan Forsyth of Rushmore Plaza Civic Center. We are also giving away a Ferrera and Ferraro are giving away a candy package. The winner of that is Chris Johnson of Classic Cinema. So thank you to Tim for donating that prize. So Chris Johnson of Classic Cinema is going to win that. Gail's Cheese has donated some cheese to us today, so we appreciate that. Kenneth Happel of Sandbar Concessions is our winner on that. And then Ben's Pretzels is giving away another one of their 2 stay-at-home pretzel kits. And that goes to Rob Warrens of Showbiz Cinemas. And then finally, John Booz has donated a very nice cutting board. And the winner of the cutting board is Rob Novak of Marcus Theaters. So again, congratulations to all the winners. And thanks again to all the terrific suppliers and NAC members for donating those prizes. So we're almost done with Tuesday. So we want to bring your attention to Wednesday. Tomorrow, we've got the Family Business Blessing or Burden at 10 o'clock Central Time. That's going to be a panel hosted by Denise DeZuter. And then later on, the Copper Cane wine testing. That's at 1 o'clock Central. And that does require a separate link. That link is on the retreat page at naconline.org. So go ahead and check that out. It looks like it's going to be a very popular session. So with that being, go ahead.
I was just saying, take care all.
Okay, thanks everyone. That's going to do it for us today. We will see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everyone.